Hello guys, my name is Richmond and I welcome you back to the RichTech channel. In our previous tutorial in structured programming, we spoke about algorithms and also types of programming errors. The types of errors you encounter during programming, okay? We spoke about them into detail. So if you missed that particular tutorial, you actually need to watch that before you get to this one to get the thing going. You understand? So I have the link in the description below. You can go there and get that video watched. Now, getting into today's tutorials, we'll be talking about variables, okay? How to name them, how to declare them, and how to initialize them, okay? So it's going to be interesting and really short. But before we get into that, if you're a new viewer, as usual, I would like you to subscribe to the channel and like this video if you learn anything new. And also, if you have any question at the end of this, you can leave it in the comment section below and I'll get to you as soon as possible. So let's get into today's tutorial. Okay guys, so in this, the first thing I would like you to know is what a variable is. Okay, so when it comes to programming, what is a variable? Okay, so let's get into that. A variable is simply, in my own definition, a container that stores a particular type of data. So take note of that, a particular type of data. Okay, I'm emphasizing on that because that will relate to the types of variables that we'll be talking about. Okay, so they are just containers or they are spaces created in the system, for a particular type of data. Okay, so the next thing we'll be doing is, or we'll be learning about, is how to name these variables. Okay, how to name these variables in our program. And I have some points here I think you have to follow in order to get your naming right when you are actually introducing a variable in your programming or in your code. Okay, so names used in a computer solution to store data are known as variable, as I said earlier on. Okay, and then variables, they must start with either an English alphabet or an underscore symbol. Okay, so take note of that as well. And then if more than one character is used, the rest of the characters should be in English alphabet, digits 0 to 9, or the underscore symbol. So basically, you should understand these are things you need to know in order to name your variable. So take note of that. Okay, and the variable names can be of any reasonable length. And I'm emphasizing on that too as well. Any reasonable length. Now, if you are writing a code that is going to comprise, thousands of lines and then, for instance, if you want to declare a variable or you want to introduce a variable that is going to store a particular type of data, it should be in a way that whenever you need it in your code, it will be easily to, type or to bring on board, because coding is stressful. So you don't need to name your variable so lengthy that you have to type a whole sentence to get the name. Okay, so that is all what I'm trying to talk about. So it should be of a reasonable length. Okay, and then variable names must be short. Okay, so this is actually explaining the previous point. Okay, and then also be meaningful. Okay, so if you are storing if you are trying to introduce a variable that is going to store a name of a company, or you can just say name of company or name of camp. Okay, something like that, something that is going to make you remember. Okay, so if there are two or more names in your program, for instance, if you are going to store names of people in a particular variable and then you're also going to store a name of a company, okay, so you can just make the name of the people or the person name underscore person, okay, and the one of the company name underscore camp or company. Okay, so something like that, something really short and understandable, okay, can do. The next thing is that they should not include special characters such as at, the hashtag, and then the dollar symbol. So these are things you should not include in your variable naming. Okay, So going on, there are so many points here you need to follow when naming your variables. So variables can be in lower or uppercase, okay, or combination of both, okay. Note that some programming languages such as C++ are case sensitive, okay. So in C++, a P with a capital P is not with just a capital P is not equal to a P with both or all of the letters in capitals, okay. So note that if you introduce or if you declare your variable using a particular format and later on you want to call upon that variable somewhere in your program and you use a different character, I mean whether lower or uppercase, if you interchange that, it's not going to work. It's going to give you an error, okay. So take note of that as well, okay. Variable names must not be a keyword or a reserved word. Now in any programming language at all, you are going to encounter keywords or reserved words. So I don't want to go deep into keywords and reserved words, but the reason why you don't have to use these words is that they actually mean something in that particular programming language. They already mean something. So for instance, wow, okay, for those things are reserved words that the system recognize already. So if you name a variable with that word, it's going to conflict with that, okay. So take note of that as well. Whenever two words are concatenated, okay, as a variable, we will capitalize each word, such as net pay, total marks, income tax, okay, etc. So these ones are just for you to know what your variable actually means, or easily understand, as we said earlier on, make the variable meaningful. So if you look at this variable, you can say this is a net pay variable, which is net pay, and then the total mark, income tax and all. So that's that for that. And today, guys, I have some interesting thing for you guys. Now this is a trial question and we are not going to go much into it because we want to make this video as short as possible and also interesting, okay. So with all what we've said concerning naming variables and all, any viewer who is able to solve this particular question and get all of them right will actually receive a reward from me, okay. So DM me on Instagram if you have the question solved, then I will give you the platform or the medium to send me your answer. And if you meet the required answers, then you get the reward. I'm not going to mention the reward, but then it will be something really nice. So this is something to boost you or to encourage you, okay. So let's move on to the variables declarations, okay. So before you can use any variable in your programming or in your code, your algorithm or whatever, you have to declare it, meaning you have to introduce it to the environment. So this actually means that you have to let the environment know what the variable is about. And we are going to talk about some key things you need to know about the declaration, okay. So we've said that before you can use the variable in your program, you need to declare it first. You need to make it known to the environment or the compiler that yes, create this particular space for this thing, okay. And the thing is going to the reason why I said thing is there are different types of data, okay. So the thing I actually said means the data type, okay. So create a space for this particular data type, okay. So the compiler can allocate reasonable space for your variable or the information or data you want to store in there, okay. So let's take note of that, okay. And we have here that most programming languages such as C++ require that variables be declared before their first usage. Hence, we will declare all variables before their usage. Okay, so you need to let the environment get to know of that particular type of variable, or the compiler. You need to introduce it to the compiler, or else it will tell you that, for instance, in C++, it will tell you the variable is not known in that particular scope. Okay, it will give you an error like that, which means you need to declare it before using it. Okay, so you can't just start using a variable, entering or assigning data types. Assigning data to a variable. Okay, you need to declare them first. And then there are, some procedures you need to follow in structured programming. There are some procedures you need to follow in naming variables. Okay, now we all know that the structured programming course we are taking is just to build our skills in programming. Okay, so basically all these things that we are learning, we are going to apply them in the real programming that we'll be doing later on somewhere. Okay, so it's just going to give you a gist of how it is done in a real programming, just that in the program it has syntax, and then some things are going to be changed, but then the logic is the same. Okay, so the understanding is the same. Okay, so let's see. So you have to write declare variable. Okay, so the variable name, you first write in structured programming. Okay, if you want to declare a variable, you first write declare. Okay, then you bring the variable name. Okay, then you bring as. Okay, then the last thing is the data type. Okay, so for instance, I want to declare a variable that will store whole numbers. Positive whole numbers. And we all know that integers can be used, or positive whole numbers fall under integers. Okay, so we could just say declare number, so that's the name of my variable, number, as integer. Very simple. So I hope we all get that. So integer is one of the data type. Okay, so we have integer for storing integers. Okay, and then we have double for storing real numbers. Okay, we also have a variable which I didn't list as part of the data type, which is a float. It also stores real numbers, which is decimal numbers as well, just as the double, but it has a little difference. Okay, but I'll talk about that when we are dealing with actual programming. Okay, we also have bool or boolean data type. Okay, which stores situations with only two outcomes, whether true or false, whether 1 or 0, whether on or off. Okay, so in programming you would encounter some of these data type. We also have char, char, which is for storing a single character. Okay, a single character. Let's take note of that. Let's not interchange it with the string. Okay, and then we also have string for storing more characters. One or more characters. You can use string in place of a character, but then you can't use a character in place of a string. Just as files cannot store folder, but then a folder can contain a file. Okay, so strings are just for storing two or more characters, whilst a character type of data, or a character data type, is just for a single character, a single character. And sometimes it's professional to use the character when you are storing single data instead of the string, because the character actually uses less data. Okay, so whenever it's your program is running on any application, it's going to run smooth and very well. So sometimes you just need to understand these things to know which one to use at which point in time. Okay, so let's move on. So we have some variables here we've declared. Okay, so we wanted to declare variable called a, b, and c as integers, and you could do that on the same line or with just a single command. You could do that. You don't have to necessarily declare each and every one of them as integers on the same on different lines. Okay, you could just make them one, just as you see here. Declare a, b, c as integers. Okay, you can say declare a as integer, declare b as integer on different lines. It's correct, but then it's quite not professional, and then it's going to waste your time. But then if you want to declare b as a boolean and maybe c as a string or a character, you obviously need to declare them on different lines because they are different data types. Okay, so we have sum here. Declare sum as integer, declare average as a double. Okay, so after declaring your variable, after introducing your variable to the compiler, you've made the compiler know of that particular variable in terms of its name and also the particular type of data it's going to store or contain. Okay, so there is another thing you need to do. Okay, you need to initialize your variable. Sometimes you can decide to skip these things, or the initialization, but then I recommend you to always initialize your variables, because if you don't initialize them, sometimes there are random numbers stored in the variable for you, because you've decided not to put anything there, so the system will actually put something there for you. So you need to always initialize your variable based on what you want. Okay, so mostly you would initialize variables with 0, 1s, or whatever you want to initialize it with. Okay, so take note of that. So that is the first value, or the first thing you are going to store in the variable. That is the first thing that particular container or that variable is going to contain. Okay, that value is going to be the initialization value. Okay, so here we said in some programming languages, when a variable is declared and it is not used without being assigned an initial value, it would have an unknown value that can lead to unpredictable outputs. Okay, so just as I was saying, you need to initialize your variable with data. Okay, so this is all what we have for today on variables. Okay, before we end the tutorial, I'm not going to end without giving you a brief summary of all what we've learned. Okay, so we started by saying variables are containers that contain a specific data type. Okay, or that are meant to contain specific data type when we have when we are programming. Okay, and then we said variables have some things we need to know about them. Okay, so the things we need to know when naming variables in our programming languages, or whether C++, Python, Java, or what have you. Okay, we said after naming your variable or getting a name for your variable, you need to declare it. That is the first thing you need to do when you are introducing a variable in your code or in your program. Okay, you need to make your compiler know of your variable, or you need to make the scope of programming know about your variable. Okay, and the type of data it is going to store. Very important. So that moved us into how to declare the variable, where we said that first of all you are going to type the keyword. Okay, in structured programming or in writing algorithms or pseudocodes, you are going to type the keyword declare, okay, followed by the variable name, then the data type. Okay, so declare in number as integer, or declare name as string, or declare grade as character. Okay, so things like this are just basic examples of variable declarations. And we also said that after declaring your variable, you need to initialize it with a starting value, or else it will be given any value at all, any random value, which would end up making your code wrong in some way or the other. So we need to initialize our variables when we declare them. Okay, so basically these are the things we learned, and we also spoke about some types of data. Okay, so variables are differentiated with their data types. So depending on the type of data it stores, you can tell the type of variable it is. Okay, so we have variables that store integers, we have variables that store doubles, floats, we have variables that store boolean types of data, we have variables that store characters and strings. Okay, so let's take note of that. And in our next tutorial, we are going to talk about input statement. That will be very interesting, and gradually we are moving towards the ending of this particular course, where we are going to learn how to write real algorithms, I mean pseudocodes, okay, for programs or for problems. Okay, so stick to this channel, and then if you have any question at all, you can leave it in the comment section. If you also learn something new, you can like this video. Very important. Okay, stay blessed, and then see you later. Bye bye.